these spiritual teachers, some of them, justify that everything they do is okay, right? And some of these spiritual followers, their understanding is that you're allowed to do anything now, that you are basically untouchable. That's their understanding. So I can do what I like. Spiritual teachers can do what they like. This is another thing I wanted to ask you, looking at it from your profession as well as this same wisdom. Narcissistic people, how do you see that? Is it something people are kind of born with, or is it something that they inherit at the later stage? Or can you tell me a little bit about that?
So that's two questions. Let me
sorry.
No, that's fine. Let me. Fortunately, my memory is not horribly impaired at my advanced age. I can remember to walk in and chew gum. So aging is really very interesting. I guess that's the best word I can. That's the most hopeful word I can apply. It's interesting. The first question about the spiritual teachers who believe that they've transcended karma and can now do anything. Well, I don't really believe in karma. I don't think it works that way. But what I think about that is that spirituality is a great hiding place for psychopaths. And a lot of spiritual teachers are psychopaths. They have been psychopaths. And they rape their students or whatever it is, and that's okay. Well, obviously it's not okay to abuse other people. It's just not okay. And it doesn't matter who you are or what your karma is like. So a lot of these teachers are simply psychopathic. A psychopath is someone just focused on his or her own needs and desires and doesn't really see other people except as chess pieces to move around and abuse. So that's there have been many psychopathic spiritual teachers, many. You take someone like Rajneesh, Osho, he kept changing his name, but I knew him as Rajneesh. He was that kind of psychopath. He abused a lot of his followers and students. Another one like that is Bubba Frijan, raped a lot of women in front of their husbands, for example, and said it was for their spiritual benefit. No, it was for his sex kicks. He was a psychopath. So we shouldn't respect these people. They're mentally ill. So the other question about narcissism. We're all born with some degree of narcissism. It's part of the human mind, which means I care about myself. I love myself. I put myself above others. I think that what I do is great. This is narcissism. What happens in early childhood with the inherent narcissism depends a lot on the skill level of the parents and how they meet that narcissism of the child. So when the child expresses the narcissism in a natural way, which children must do as part of their developmental progress, the parent will meet that narcissism depending on skill level and also on that parent's own relationship to his or her narcissism. I'll give an example. A 2-year-old boy comes to daddy and says, "Papa, am I the greatest little boy in the whole world?" That's a narcissistic statement, obviously. If I said to you, "I'm the greatest man in the history of humanity," Sabine, you would say, wow, Robert is a narcissist. You see, he's crazy. Okay. But when the child says that, that's a healthy narcissism. He's beginning to inhabit himself, and he's getting a feeling for I exist. A skillful father who doesn't have his own narcissistic issues at that point might pick up the child, hold him up like this, and in a slightly mocking tone of voice, slightly, will say, you certainly are. You're the greatest boy in the whole world. And in a kind of a burlesque. Now, an unskillful father who had narcissistic problems and feared that if the child continued feeling that way, he would be foolish and people would laugh at him or not like him, might say, don't be ridiculous. You're just another ordinary kid. And that would be a wound, a narcissistic wound that's inappropriate at that age and stage, and would wound the child so that later that child might become narcissistic in a wrong way, always trying to get over this deep wound that the father had inflicted upon him at the age of, say, 2. I don't know if I'm making this clear. Does that make sense to you, Sabine?
It's pretty good, yeah. Really good.
Just as I said, psychopathy is prevalent among spiritual teachers because spirituality is a good hiding place for psychopaths. It's also a great hiding place for narcissists. These people who say, I'm fully enlightened. You see, that's a totally narcissistic statement. It's absurd. When I say I find myself awake, which I have said, I think, I'm just describing the condition I'm in, which is all of this is arising. I hear the words coming out, but I don't know where they're coming from. I'm not making them. I don't know what I'm going to say next. It's all just arising. I'm here, but I'm not doing it. There is no doer of any of this from my perspective. And I call that being awake. Other people have criticized it and said, Robert, that's not really what awake is. Awake is when you realize that the universe is all one, non-duality. Well, I think that's nonsense. I think awake is when you just simply understand that you're not the doer, and you don't know if it's all one or if there's a million universes and they're all separate. You have no way of knowing that. In the multiverse, there could be an infinity of universes, and it's not all one. This is just one little bubble in a vast infinity of bubbles. And the bubbles keep just arising and bubbling up, and then they burst. When they come to the surface, a universe appears. When the bubble pops, the universe goes out of existence. We may be living in the multiverse, or this may be a simulation on someone's computer in the far future. We just don't know that. We have no way of knowing it. And that is my critique of non-duality, folks. Give it a rest. It's a non-starter. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere. And I've seen people hypnotized by it, deeply hypnotized by this. And it's sad to see. It really is.
It is.
Oh, well, that's quite a statement. And I have friends I know who are hypnotized that way. And I feel for them. They may be happy with it, and if they are, okay. But it cuts off communication. Because once you adopt a belief like that, it's really hard to communicate with ordinary people who don't see it that way.